Hello, my name is Ivan Kim. Today I'll be presenting Changing Phenology Evidence from Nigeria. I'm a PhD student at Bocconi University and an external collaborator of the NCID at the Universidad de Navarra. So, a brief motivation as to why this paper. Agriculture is a very important sector and it is highly vulnerable to climate change. So it becomes very crucial for us to understand, especially in the most vulnerable countries, how to properly adapt and help farmers face the coming and the present challenges. Many things have been tried, helping them understand the proper use, for example, of fertilizers or insecticides, or giving them information about the upcoming weather events, or for example, giving them money so that they can acquire different inputs. And these have had varying degrees of success. The thing is, one thing maybe has been a bit understudied, and this is the timing of the growing season and how it relates to their own timing in terms of planting. Why do I focus on planting? Just because this is harder to understand. While it is very clear to see when you should harvest your crop, it is not as clear when you should plant it. So the purpose of this paper, let's say, is threefold. The first one is we're going to estimate phenology in Nigeria, and I keep using this word, but it just means to say the timing of the growing season. So we're going to find a date for the start, the peak, and the end of the growing season in Nigeria over time, okay? And what we find is that it changes from year to year, so it's not as static as people might think. And using this variation, we're going to identify whether farmers respond in their planting strategies and whether there is an effect on their productivity. Just to make it short, what we find is that along many dimensions, so for example, the number of crops they grow, the area they plant, the labor input they use either from their own household or from hired workforce, we find that they do not adapt. So they do not respond to changes in phenology. However, they do respond in their planting schedule, which is in line with heuristics in which farmers actually try to find the best time to plant. And they do so by, surprisingly perhaps for you and also for me, by, for example, planting later when the season arrives earlier. And this is related to the way in which the rainy season interacts with the timing of the growing season that I would explain in more detail if I had more time. Then, whatever adaptation they do in terms of their timing seems not to be enough because there is an impact on their productivity, and sadly, an earlier start of the growing season relative to the long-run mean is going to mean lower productivity in terms of yield. Ex ante, it was hard to understand whether this was going to be the case because you can make the argument that it could be both good or bad to have an earlier season. Why? Because, for example, an earlier season is correlated with a lengthier season, which would mean that you would have more time to accumulate heat units, for example, but also would mean that you would have more time for your crops to be affected by pests. So this just gives us a sense of the importance of understanding the timing of the growing season. And provides perhaps a potential interesting new avenue for agricultural extension and information services to help farmers in the future. Thank you very much.